We are covering all the breaking news today, and there's a ton of it, principally following everything going on in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're looking at the aftermath of the invasion by radical protesters into a Baptist church Sunday morning in Minnesota. Many people are saying, including several legal experts, that Don Lemon, who was there, and the radical protesters should face federal charges under the FACE Act and possibly the KKK Act of 1871. So we're going to see how quickly the Trump administration and the DOJ wants to move on that. In addition to invading Baptist churches in Minneapolis, the radical protesters are now invading Target. This just into the Scott Jennings Show. I am looking at video of liberal women sitting in the floor of a Target. They are mad. They want to shut down the Target because Target was letting ICE agents use the bathroom. We have liberal white women on the floor of the Target here on MLK Day demanding separate but equal bathrooms in Minneapolis, Minnesota, if you can believe it. I know it sounds like the craziest mad libs you could possibly imagine, but it is literally happening in Minneapolis, where people have obviously lost their minds. Joining me at the top of this hour for the Scott Jennings Show, Congressman Randy Fine, representing Florida's 6th Congressional District, is here to discuss these out-of-control Democrats and other stories. Randy, thanks for coming back to the Scott Jennings Show, and I want to get your gut reaction to what we're seeing in Minneapolis. Is it time for the president to invoke the Insurrection Act and bring order to this place that's clearly out of order?
Well, thanks for having me again. Look, we've got to put this down because the future of America is at stake. If the left can behave this way, demand that Target not let people use the bathroom, go in and shut down church services, I don't care what their reason is. This cannot be allowed in the United States of America. And if it is allowed, if we make excuses for it, it will become more and more widespread. I know if they tried this in Florida, they would end up in a very different result, but it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. If you want to go to church or synagogue, you should not be interrupted because of politics.
Yeah, I've talked to Mike Davis from the Article 3 Project last hour, and he is echoing a lot of legal experts who say these are clear violations of federal law. To me, and I'm interested in your reaction to this, if the Trump administration and DOJ does not move on this immediately, it is going to proliferate. You're going to see more people invading churches. You're going to see more people who feel emboldened to clearly violate federal laws and people's civil rights. I am in agreement with you. Something has to happen now. The longer nothing happens, the more people feel like they can do it. And this will have a snowball effect there in Minneapolis and probably in other cities, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it will lead to violence and bloodshed. I can tell you, if they tried this in Florida, they would probably be met by people who would stand their ground. We do not need people to get hurt over this sort of thing. The left is playing with fire. We saw that when you had the person try to run over the ICE agent. They're now doing it in churches. This is out of hand. Remember, ICE is simply trying to round up foreign invaders. Americans are not even the target of any of this. So to stand with foreign invaders over Americans, it's very, very troubling. And we've got to say there's a zero tolerance policy for this stuff.
Yeah, Governor Tim Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis, honorary Somali pirate Jacob Fry, it is amazing to me the lengths to which they are going to encourage people to engage in this insurrection, to defend having Minneapolis and Minnesota as a whole being a haven for illegal immigration. We're talking about people here who are murderers, rapists, pedophiles, people who've committed all sorts of heinous acts. This is who ICE has arrested. And what's really at play, and of course the debate that gets lost in all this sensational video, is that the reason ICE is in Minneapolis in the numbers they are is because Walz and Fry will not permit ICE to go into the jails like what's happening in cities and states across the country and do very simple administrative transfers in the jail. So in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, they get an illegal alien who's violent criminal. They let them back out onto the street. Then you have to have ICE go find them and chase them down. That's why ICE is there. A little cooperation here would probably set everything to rights, but you're just not getting that out of the Democrats in Minnesota.
No, and that's because it's maybe a voter that goes away. What is clear is this is part of a left-wing experiment to raid our treasury, fill us with illegal votes. And what's going on is nuts. And you hear about the kinds of people that they are releasing and that ICE is catching up. They make it sound like we're picking up grandmas who've lived in the country for 50 years. Well, I don't know a lot of grandmas who are raping and murdering little children, which are the kinds of people they're picking up. These are the scum of the earth that ICE is going after. And for Democrats to literally go into churches and disrupt families just trying to pray in order to protect rapists and murderers, it just shows how far the left has fallen. And we simply can't allow this. This has to be put down.
And listen to the language. They refer to these people as our neighbors and important members of our community. I don't know about you, but I don't want rapists and murderers and pedophiles being my neighbor. I would like them to be taken away and sent far, far away from my neighborhood. Randy Fine's our guest, Congressman from Florida, the Hebrew Hammer, as he's known on Capitol Hill. Randy, let me ask you a question on a different story. There have been shocking revelations from Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, who is writing in a new memoir that when he was interviewed by Kamala Harris and her staff for vice president to be put on the Democratic ticket in 2024, they asked him if he was ever an Israeli double agent. And obviously, he was not happy about this. He did not get on the ticket. They chose the buffoon Tim Walz instead. When you read these revelations from Shapiro, what was your reaction?
Well, I wish I could say I was surprised, but I wasn't. You know, on the anti-Semitic left, being Jewish means that you must be a dual citizen and you must have dual loyalties. You know, I never even went to Israel till I was in my 30s, but that doesn't stop people from making these suggestions. And I think for Jews that are in the Democratic Party, they need to take a hard look at how Shapiro was treated. Because, by the way, had the Democrats picked him, I think it would have been a tougher road for us in beating them in 2024. But no, I'm not surprised because I see how people like Ilhan Omar, Rashida Tlaib, and even Jeffries himself treat Jewish Americans. It's appalling, and we shouldn't be surprised. We should take note. This shows just how delusional the left has become.
In addition to being asked if he were an Israeli double agent, they also asked him if he would consider apologizing for comments that he made about some of the Free Palestine encampments. It, in my opinion, shows that the Harris-Biden Democratic regime was obsessed with Israel, and they were also obsessed with trying to find ways to support these lawless encampments, even asking Josh Shapiro to apologize. The man had the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania burned down by one of these Free Palestine radicals. It's incredible.
Well, Scott,
and I suspect that it's still...
Yeah, Scott, I think it's more than that. I think that they are pushing mainstream Muslim terror, and you can see that today. Where are the encampments for what's going on in Iran? Where are the street protests in New York City, people blocking streets and bridges? Where are these over the country when you have thousands and thousands of innocent Muslims in Iran being shot? These people are suddenly incredibly silent. And so I think it's much more than Israel. I think it's much more than Jews. I think it really is embracing an anti-Western, anti-American, pro-terrorism agenda, and that's something everyone should be frightened about.